hydrofracking, says Mr. Albert, is going to happen, come what may.
I find it very confusing that our current government, with David Albert in the lead, is really pushing for an industry that, when David Albert was in the opposition last year, only a year ago in April 2010, was really asking very critical questions to the Liberal government at the time, to the Minister of Natural Resources in the legislative building, asking for assurances that this industry would not compromise our drinking water.
And I'd just like to know how Bruce Northrup can possibly approve hydraulic fracking in the province of New Brunswick when he attended a House of Commons standing committee in Ottawa, and he listened to Dr. Antonio Ingrafia, who's one of the world's most renowned experts in the field of hydraulic fracking, say clearly that the province of New Brunswick should not move forward with the fracking in this province because of our geology being very similar to that in the state of Pennsylvania, where they've had so many problems.
Minister Northrup yesterday made the comment that there is no proof yet that it is a bad thing because there hasn't been a successful lawsuit. That is absolutely ridiculous. It's like saying the abusive husband isn't going to murder the wife that he's threatening. The cops won't do anything until after she's dead, right?
Okay, so Mr. Northrup, this is an important statement that you're making here.
That's why I said it. No means no.
You're telling me that if, that's the question. If the people of New Brunswick tell you loud and clear that they don't want this, are you going to listen to them and do what they don't want?
The individuals don't want the industry on their land, then no means no.
How many of
and
us
what about
is
the
it going to
communities?
If everybody says no, if everybody says no,
how can we say no? What are our avenues for saying no?
you can tell the industry that no means no.
How do we do that?
By what
Send
you're
an
doing,
email?
well, what you're doing today and sending emails to them, yes.
We held a screening. We held a screening of a film in Hampton on Saturday night, and there was a gentleman there who deliberately was provoking and instigating people at the meeting and would not announce who he was. We later found out that he worked for Corridor Resources. That tells me industry is in no way accountable to citizens.
Mr. Albert even made a statement. He had to make the statement because, I mean, the truth has to be said. They cannot guarantee that there will not be any contaminations of groundwater. So even though they're going to be using safe technologies, they cannot guarantee the groundwater contamination.
Mr. Northrup, you mentioned in your opening remarks that if hydrofracking did occur, that the landowners should have or would have their wells tested prior to hydrofracking. So you get your well tested and your water's fine, and let's just take a scenario that somebody that's been living on a farm for maybe about 5 or 6 generations and everything's been fine. And all of a sudden hydrofracking occurs, and all of a sudden you can put a match to your water and you can light it. Why are lawsuits going on? Because what that tells me is if that should happen to a farm owner, then this big company is going to come back and say, well, yeah, that's unfortunate, but you can't prove that it's our fault. Yeah. And there aren't that many people in this room that are wearing Armani suits, like that can afford to go against these companies. And this lady that was interviewed on As It Happens, this is her problem. Like, she can literally light her water on fire, but the company is saying, well, yeah, but it could have happened naturally. You can't prove that it's us. So even though this company has a bond, it could be that they don't want to part with it because they've got investors or whatever, and they have to look out for themselves. That's what worries a lot of people, I think. So my question is, if that happens, and if hydrofracking happens in this province, to me, it's inevitable. Something is going to go wrong sometime, maybe not in my lifetime, but something is going to go wrong, and that poor person is not going to be able to prove that it was because of that.
And that's where the scenario is in that no means no. If I'm industry and I come to your house and say I'd like to do some seismic testing on your land and you say no, then no means no.
You as a single landowner cannot protect your well by saying no, because they just have to go next door and go right underneath you and your water is gone.
This startled us to see how many companies are already in New Brunswick. Not coming, they're here. There's 9 companies now, covering 3.6 million acres of land that's already been secured in licenses and or leases, with a grid on every inch of our land, including the coastal waters, for more development.
Now, I'm an advocate for shale gas drilling. Let me be straight. If the government and the industry can come to me and demonstrate to me that the benefits by far outweigh the risk of this process, then I'm prepared to let them drill. But I'm not prepared to let them drill without proper government regulation, without any citizens' oversight, without any proper royalty regime. It's ludicrous that they think that they can just come in here and do what they're doing.
The Honourable Craig Leonard, the Ministry of Energy, stated that he wouldn't want to call a moratorium on this industry in our province because just look at Quebec. In Quebec, the companies started leaving.
Yes.
So we wouldn't want that to happen in New Brunswick. And he said, listen to this. He stated that his phone is ringing now from those companies wanting to come here to develop here. And he was thrilled. He was thrilled that we want to have and welcome, put out the welcome mat for the crappy companies that were proven to do wrong. And the reason I can say that is because Quebec only called a moratorium because 19 out of the 31 wells, exploratory wells, that they did an investigation on were leaking natural gas. Was never supposed to happen.
You want to drill a gas well? You go down by your dooryard and drill. Don't you come up here in ours. We don't want you.
I want to know what your history has been with property owners when they try to leave after you've come and destroyed their community and they try to sell their property so that they can go.
I don't know that we've had any property owners that have like that. I'm going to complain to us.
We want a gas well. Can you not understand that?
I appreciate
we
that.
don't
Yes.
want it. You will ruin
What's your reason that you would not like a gas well?
You will ruin this valley.
We will not do what we do in oil and gas operations anywhere. Not in New Brunswick, not in Arkansas, not in Texas, not anywhere. If we cannot do it properly and in a way that protects the public safety and the environment, period.
We have the Pembina Institute and the David Suzuki Foundation that have come out and said economically and with climate change, going with a natural gas extraction process for an economic diversity policy here in New Brunswick is a failure.
We're a good 4 years away from any kind of major development. It just can't happen any sooner than that.
We have groups like the New York Riverkeepers. We have organizations like the New York City Department of Environmental Protection that have come out and emphatically reported on there have been thousands of contaminations in the U.S. States like Arkansas, states like Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, and these states have had a litany of water contamination cases surrounding not only the fracturing, but the handling of these wastewaters. So even after the fracturing process, It's been well documented that when they start transporting a lot of the wastewater fluid or injecting it back into the ground, it causes even further water contamination issues.
There isn't a dollar on this earth that's worth the water or the environment of this province or anything, okay? We're not suggesting we trade dollars for that, ever.
Whistleblowers from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency have come out since late 1990s, and they have told us that time and time again the gas and oil industry have settled many of these contamination issues out of court and then sealed the evidence from the EPA.
I don't think the general public is really realizing the scale of development. Well, people who live in Penobsquis know the scale, the scale of development that they live with every day. We can, transfer that to every single rural community in New Brunswick where natural gas is found. And that has the potential to completely change the dynamic and the character of our rural province.
Hydraulic fracturing at extremely high pressures is only something that's less than 2 decades old. The research, now the implementation of this, is only less than 10 years.
We have promised to the government and the people that it will all be done in a responsible and safe manner. We're an experienced, mature company. We've been around since 1929. So we've been doing this a little while. We have a great heritage of people that have built this company up to where it is today.
And so what we're seeing is a very young industry, that they don't have a lot of experience. And when they come into very hard bedrock geology like Pennsylvania, they've created a nightmare scenario. They've had one drinking water contamination after another. And the notion that they've had 50 or 70 years experience, the notion that they know exactly how to prevent all these water contamination issues, the fact that they know how to properly decontaminate and dispose of waste water, millions of gallons each and every day, is untrue.
About 30 protesters spent the night here on this woods road. They have a makeshift camp just behind me here. They slept in their cars or in tents or under shelter. They have a bonfire going, and they say they're going to stay here until someone from government comes to this blockade. The protest started yesterday when about 30 people showed up here to stop 5 trucks from Swin Resources Canada from moving to another site. On those trucks are what are called vibration trucks. They test for what is under the ground, and it's all involved in shale gas exploration. So far, those trucks have not moved. The RCMP is here. Yesterday, there were only a couple RCMP officers. Now there's more than 8. The protesters say they will stay here, even in all this rain, until they get something from government.
We're perfectly peaceful. We merely want the government to think before it gets into something it can't get out of. Most academic opinion says that fracking is a dangerous process. Geologists don't like people making holes in the ground and they don't know what's down there.
Any reasonable person knowing that if you punch holes throughout the province in multiple locations through individual aquifers and then pump in millions and millions of gallons of toxic water, most of which remains in the ground, that there's not going to be a problem.
In the early 1980s, I was a fresh graduate right out of high school, and I landed up in northern Alberta, northern British Columbia, working oil exploration seismic. And we were working around a town called Westlock, Alberta, and I worked on what we call a blasting crew. Outside of Westlock, we went by this farmer's field, and we could see his farmyard and his barn house and all that. And we went through, we done the blasting, we set off our charges, picked up our data, and when we returned later in that day to pick up our equipment, the farmer come out and he was quite irate at us, and he had a few choice words, and he chewed us out pretty big time. But I guess what happened is when we went through setting off our charges of dynamite, and we collapsed his well in his barn and the one in the house. I was at a meeting in Rogersville, and the company told me that this was impossible, that it has never happened. And you know, I lived it, I worked it, I know it does happen. So just in the seismic aspect of this here is really dangerous to our wells as well.
One thing the David Alward government has been trying to assure the people in the province is that they are going to have some of the strictest regulations put in place for the shale gas industry here in New Brunswick. And they're talking about the strictest regulations in all of North America. At the exact same time, they are actually dismantling the wetland and the watershed protection policies here in this province. And so in March of this year, they dismantled the wetland protection policy. In July, they dismantled the water classification project that was a decade in making. They completely shelved it. And so our watershed regulatory framework for protecting our drinking water is out the window. So how can we believe David Alward, Bruce Northrup, Craig Leonard, and Margaret Ann Blaney when they assure us that we're going to have strict shale gas regulations put in place? It's not true.
I ask each of you every day to express this to the water. Water, I love you. Water, I thank you. Water, I respect you. Water, I seek your forgiveness.
We're damn tired. I just want it to be over and done with. I just want them to do the right thing.
We would like the people here to have justice because the government says that regulations will save everyone and protect us, but Penobsquis is an example where regulations that were in place never helped anyone.
This is the story of what happened in Penobsquis over the last few years. This map is an aerial view of the Penobsquis area, and it shows the old mine that's been in operation since the 1980s. And the new mine will be going across the road over here. The red markings are the mining shafts underneath the ground, and they followed the old Trans-Canada Highway all the way through Penobsquis. The yellow stars are the wells and springs that have been lost over the last 10 years approximately.
I get my water that runs off the roof of the garage and into a barrel. Then I lift it with a tractor and set it over and pump it down cellar.
In 1999, that's when we started having problems here with our water. We have a 1 acre lot, and there were 3 springs on that acre. Of those 3 springs, none of them are left.
We had springs in all the fields that we watered the cattle with, and they've all gone dry. In the home here, we had an artesian well in the basement, and that's gone dry.
Some of the springs and wells were lost while seismic testing and fracking operations were taking place in Penobsquis.
In 2004, PCS decided that they were going to try and find out where the leak was in the mine, or where the water was coming into the mine. It was shortly after they did the seismic testing that our water turned very brown, almost like chocolate milk. So we called a plumber and we had a filtration system put in. That lasted us probably about 2 weeks, and then the well just went completely dry.
I physically went 2 months without any water before the potash and the government got together and put the water tanks down in our basement. But for 2 months I had to lug the water for the toilets and anything that I needed water for in the home.
We complained because we said it just wasn't enough water to run a household on. And they told us that we weren't to be doing laundry with it because that wasn't considered a household usage.
Without water, you have to limit how you use your water.
You couldn't have company in. You couldn't have a family dinner because you didn't know if you were going to have enough water for people to use the washrooms.
The water was taken from me, and I'm not going to sign a contract to get it back.
Okay, this is the people that have lost their water.
There's 60 homes that had water and now are paying for water because of the industrialization that's taken place here. And between the potash, with the subsidence and the initial water crisis, and then the seismic on top of it, and the natural gas exploration, and the fracking, and the flaring, and the noise, and the racket, you can't sleep in on the weekends. It's a nightmare. You know, we can't sell our homes because everybody knows, oh, they've got no water, and B, their houses are sinking.
There's 2 new towers just across the street that are the new mine. And here is Route 114, which is the old Trans-Canada Highway. Now underneath the ground, there's a salt dome that's pushing up. So this is a salt dome pushing up. And potash is a salt. So they come down here and they mine potash in an area right around the side of this salt dome. And they also mine salt out of the middle. Now the model used by UMB says that there's an aquifer that's less than 150 meters from the surface of the ground. And that aquifer is going down into the mining stopes. And the mine is pumping out this water. So essentially what's happening is we believe they're draining our aquifer that we depended upon for our well water.
And when they lost their water, the Potash Company and Corridor Resources decided that it wasn't their responsibility to replace the water, because there was no way to prove that that the loss of the water in the farms was a result of the mining efforts.
Ever since Corridor and PCS has come into this area, they have been very good corporate citizens. They have given bursaries. They helped support the WI Hall.
Corridor Resources gave us $40,000. We put up a playground. We put up a fenced-in pad for ball hockey, basketball. This past year they gave us $10,000.
They extract the water in order to keep the mine viable. For a number of years they ran trucks to Denison Potacan mine, where there was a pipeline which went to the Bay of Fundy. It's my opinion that probably most of the water problems that's experienced by the local landowners and the subsidence that also has happened to the land, the surface area that's collapsed near the mine, is a result of the water that's being has leaked down into the mine in at tremendous volumes.
It's time that the sane people of Penobsquis got together and spoke out, saying, everything is fine here. We don't have a problem with the water. There are problems with subsidence, yes.
The white dots are subsidence monuments that the mine have put in to measure how much the ground is settling, that is sinking, and moving sideways, because the ground is doing both.
There's probably about 30 acres on the farm that are now unusable because of the subsidence, and that is that the meadowland here is sinking. We are on a floodplain, and so every year it did get underwater in the spring. However, the land for 7 generations has been farmed and hay has been taken off in the summer. But now, because the land is sinking, it is underwater for a greater part of the summer.
Something happened here on this property. My front porch steps separated from the house. I had just painted them. My garage cracked in half. It seemed that the floor came up this way, so the foundation's cracked on both sides. Big business that is going to come into an area that is a rural area. I mean, the farm down there is 8 generations on the same farm. They should make some sort of a contingency plan when you're going to go in and destroy a community. You know you're going to sacrifice this community, and this is the sacrifice zone for this mine. They should perhaps put $1 million in trust just strictly for that community.
This map is one of the many diagrams we have that show some of the subsidence, and it has the ISO lines on it. So just like you might see on a map showing the topography, showing how high a mountain is, this shows some sinking that's been going on. And again, you can see the mine shafts done out there.
If one of these houses collapses, or the septic tanks all go, and every third one has gone, had they come in as a good corporate citizen and done it that way, the funds would be there. Then I wouldn't care that I had to have my septic field done again.
If they want to turn it into an industrial park, then buy us out.
In my view, the original, when the mine was originally found, they could have followed a pattern such as the Saskatchewan government of the day did when they found the potash mines in Saskatchewan. They nationalized them, and they belong to the people of Saskatchewan.
I think I paid enough taxes in my time that I shouldn't have to sign a contract now that I can have a glass of water.
I would like to move anywhere that isn't as polluted and as industrialized as Penobsquis.
It's a chance to make money, but my first priority is to protect the water for the people in New Brunswick.
Lost the water, our well, and we had a driller in and put the well down again, and then we lost that in 2 weeks. They got Riley, we couldn't use it. So then I got the well driller back again and went down 140 feet. And it lasted about 3 weeks. And then it went dry.
The water going into the mine is directly underneath the springs and wells that have gone dry. We're supposed to believe it's all a coincidence.
Things did go bad with the potash mine and those residents. They lost their water between 5 and 6 years. And the only thing they have that kicks in when that negative thing happens is to hire a lawyer and take them to court themselves. Multi-billion-dollar companies. You know, a local resident takes money. I mean, good luck.
The situation is such in Penobsquis that this case is really precedent-setting or standard-setting in terms of what's going to happen to the rest of the province or even the rest of Canada in terms of what's going to happen when industry comes to communities. And so we really feel it's important that we're going to be successful. And in order to be successful, unfortunately, we need money. We're to the point where we're having to pay to bring in the government folks because we have to pay them, apparently, to have them summoned. And they're people that have information. We're being asked to bring forward experts, And again, there's costs associated with that we're going to have a hard job to take on. So if we're setting a precedent, then we're hoping that everyone else can come forward and help us so that they don't have to face what we've been facing, because it's been torturous and very hard.
Ultimate justice will be served when Penobsquis gets recognition for the damage that's been done to the people of that community.
The first thing was when they asked the cameras to be turned off. Got quite a reaction from the crowd in saying this is supposed to be a public hearing, so why should the cameras be turned off?
I'm not enjoying myself at this hearing because basically the inadmissibility of evidence based on the commissioner's rulings I find is just compromising the complainant's ability to make their case. I don't know how they present anything relevant if the author of that information can't be called to this hearing, and the cost of providing those witnesses is prohibitive for the complainants, and Potash Corp knows that, and they're using that defense as a means of stifling the admissibility of evidence, and I find that very frustrating and very infuriating.
Nixon testified that within 3 years of moving into her new home, problems developed. There were cracks in the molding. Land was uneven, it was sinking. Her septic system wasn't draining properly. And then in 2007, her well water disappeared.
I can foresee that if we tried to enter the National Building Code into the record here, the PCS lawyer would object because he can't cross-examine the author of that National Building Code. So I'm thoroughly bewildered by the commissioner's reaction to informing himself using every available bit of information that the complainants can provide.
I hope that the mine will provide compensation, but I don't know if they will. It would be the right thing to do instead of having all of us have to pay for water after we already had perfectly good water that they took from us.
And I made these dead canaries to represent the sad plight these families are in when their water's been destroyed by industry and they're having to fight to get compensation, which shouldn't be.
The orange tags and lines have to do with the potash mine. So there's a little bit of pipeline here that goes with the potash mine. And the yellowish green are corridor resources that has the natural gas and oil wells in Penobsquis. And they're the ones that do the fracking.
Historically, in this area here at Stony Creek, there was gas and oil developed, in particular gas, which was developed about 1908 or 1909 and was used for the city of Moncton for about 50 years until 1955 or in that order, and petered out in about 1990. That resource was used by the people of New Brunswick. It was developed for the people of New Brunswick, and the economic benefits went to the people with little or no environmental damage to the area.
Indeed, since 1990, there have been 80 wells drilled, and 49 of them have been fracked. You've all heard about this fracturing and whatnot. 49 of them, yes, have been fracked. And I will say there's not one single solitary well problem or water table problem from it.
Norway said this is our natural resource. When we decide to extract it, we will hire these companies to do it. They'll do it our way, and they will bid on it, and we'll get the lowest, best bid. So we'll do it properly, and we will benefit. So the company gets the 10%, and the country gets the billions of dollars, right?
When the profits and the shale gas both go south and leave for us aquifers with poisoned water, does he think we will not fuss? Allward Blaney think that mapping can make wetlands go away. Do they think a fracking earthquake doesn't happen 'cause they say?
We are basically capitulating and handing over the protection of our watersheds, our drinking water, over to the oil and gas industry. And I think all of us with any sort of web skills can see the record that these gas industries have.
In the end, I am just wondering what changed David Albert's mind. It's only been a year. What happened?
It is with great anguish that the Wabanaki people, the indigenous people of this beautiful river, look about us and we see yet again an assault on our sacred homelands. Shale gas, deadly chemicals, total disregard for the water, the gift of life that was given to us, the air that we breathe and the soil beneath our feet. New Brunswick shows absolute disrespect for the things necessary to live on this planet by following by allowing these companies, these mining companies, to continue. Both New Brunswick and the companies know already that toxic chemicals and radiation causes injury and death. They know that. And to continue, they will be collaborators in committing crimes against humanity.
We can stop the hydrofracking, yes we can! We can stop the hydrofracking, yes we can! We can stop the hydrofracking and set the frackers cracking and hold to keep them out, yes we can!
In Nova Scotia, which is currently undertaking an environmental assessment to see whether it should allow hydraulic fracturing, is actually receiving New Brunswick's toxic waste from hydraulic fracturing operations. It's shipped to divert in Nova Scotia, treated, and then it ends up in the Bay of Fundy.
What the frack is going on with all this fracking going on? I think we need some facts to come to light. I know we want our energy, but nothing ever comes for free. I think my water's on fire tonight.
So I don't know why we're endangering the water if that means that we're endangering Earth, which means that we're endangering our own being on Earth. It's completely ironic and absurd when you think about it.
Everybody needs water. And if we don't have water, it's going to be pretty hard for us to survive.
If the residents of Penobsquis lose to Potash Corp, then I think that all the shale gas companies are going to treat us and the rest of New Brunswick like they treat us, like Potash Corp treats us now, like crap.
the outcome and the situation is exactly the same. It doesn't matter if it's potash or it's natural gas. It's big industry moving into their backyards, ruining their lives, and getting away with it.
Penobsquis has changed over the last few years, and we're paying for it while industry makes money.
The bottom line is that if exploration and exploitation of natural gas poses a risk to our water supply, it shouldn't happen.
Your company might be the nicest company in the world, and you might be the nicest man, which I'm sure you are. But when it comes down to the fine points of it, if something happens, it's your word against ours, and we're the little guy, and you fellas have got more money than we have. How do we battle that?
What I can do as a citizen is to say, the current government, the David Alpert government, you do not have my consent or my permission or my support for undertaking this shale gas industry, and ask for a ban. And this is what I have done. I have formulated a letter to the Alpert government asking our premier to ban this.
There is a saying, in a battle between the river and the rock, the river always wins. Not because it's stronger, but because it perseveres.
Of us, the next time we gather here, and you can be sure that we will, bring along a friend.